Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to our conversation with the one and only, the incredible Alan
Oh,
Vizzutti.
please. Great
Oh
to
my,
see you.
oh man, I'm so happy. It's a privilege. It's an honor for me to be talking to you. You know that I've been a huge fan of yours for so many years. I remember. I'm gonna tell you the story. I don't know if I always ever told you that.
Okay.
Many years ago, I think it was in the 70s, early 70s. I used to hear to the shortwave radio transmission from the
Yeah.
Voices of America, the Willis Conover, the great radio host and
hmm
jazz enthusiast. Okay.
Obviously, this is when you were in Cuba.
Oh yeah. That
Yeah,
was in
yeah.
the early 70s, and he played the song that you wrote. This is your solo trumpet with Woody Herman.
Oh,
I gonna tell you, and I said, "What the heck is this? You don't supposed to do those things on the trumpet." This, Alan, you really over the years with your genius mentality and your skill on the horn and your creation music wise and all those things, you have been raising the bar of the standard of trumpet playing, but you really explode the possibility of the instrument to the max, to the top, and you have been doing things that rest of us mortal we thought that was impossible, but at the same time has been like of course a big inspiration, but also a challenge to all of us to know to do things on the trumpet that we thought before that was out of context, out of I mean out of our imagination. But I'm so glad, man, that finally we met many years ago, several
yeah,
times, and I have a
yeah,
privilege. We played together a few
yeah.
times, and always has been a big pleasure for me, man. And I appreciate that you accepted to do this conversation. And I, are you in Seattle, no? Seattle,
Yeah,
Washington?
well, yeah, home, obviously no traveling at all.
Oh
A,
my
a
goodness.
couple
Tell me about
driving things to see some family, maybe, but that's it. But before you go on, it's a bit of a mutual admiration society for those listening and watching, of course. Um, but you never had any problem playing anything I can play. And beyond, way beyond, like many octaves beyond.
it.
But wait.
Watch out, watch out. I always said excess of modesty is hypocrisy. don't be too,
I
don't
haven't
be
heard
too,
that one.
don't be, no, I created that. They say, hey,
Yeah, okay.
don't be too modest, okay?
Well, the thing about the whole modesty and trumpet playing thing is too, like it's great to be, I call it quarterback mentality, even though I'm not a big sports fan. The quarterback has to have a big ego and confidence, but he doesn't have to take it off the field and try to be better than other people, you know. So with that in mind, some of the things that I explored on the trumpet, like fire dance was what you're referring to
Oh
way
yeah, fine.
back. I wanted to I had to create a piece in order because I was playing first trumpet on Woody Herman's road band, right? And
Wow.
we had a great jazz soloist named Dennis Dotson, and wonderful, creative, beautiful sound, real jazz player. That was his main love, the actual improvisation. And he liked to play in the section, but he didn't care to play a lot of high notes and things like that. Very musical, and so we had that covered beyond our needs almost. And I had to create something showy so that I could have a solo piece instead of just staying in the back row. And then, in really what you're talking about, the body of fire dance, yes, it has upper register playing and a couple tricky things in it, but basically you play it, some other people have played it, but the cadenza is where you can really do what you want. And so I decided, even though it wasn't really jazz oriented, the cadenza itself, to do some things that I had just worked out to play on the trumpet for fun, you know, and styles that I didn't expect anyone else to do. And then later, as I wrote my method books and things like that, yes, I did write things in the method book, and also the fourth book, which is called New Concepts for Trumpet,
Yeah.
also by Alfred Publishing, that group of books.
Yeah.
I did write some things in those books that are really tough for me too, but I thought, you know, some of the asymmetrical tonguing and things like that, like taka 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 taka, kind of with figures. When you practice those things, it helps you to be really, really better at the more normal stuff too, the symmetrical tonguing and things like that. And so I decided to put those things into method book form, but I also wanted to add musical pieces all through the whole book, the whole 4 books. The third book is all music, by the way, but so you could use these techniques in a musical context.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah.
And
So that
man,
was kind of the growth of that.
one of the first things I did when I came to the US, I think that you was so kind that you let me use your chart, the chart of Fire Dance.
Yeah, I gave you one a long time ago. Yeah.
Yes, that was 30 years ago, and that was one of the first pieces I played. I played with the big band in the university where I were teaching in Florida, Florida International University. And man, but of course, every time I play that, I say, "Oh my goodness!" I remember those things to do. You say, "Oh my goodness! How?"
There was one little part of that. Yeah. Do you remember?
Oh my
I don't
goodness.
remember. I don't remember where exactly, but somewhere you and I played that together.
We did in Germany, probably in Germany.
In Europe, yeah.
Yeah, that was the auto Sauter organized those
I think,
things.
yeah, and I think it was a run out gig you had or something, you know, during that week. Because the very first international trumpet days was called Trumpetentagen, which is trumpet days in German, in Bremen, Germany, was where we met, where we first met in person. And you had played a concert with your group, your whole group, your small group, and knocked our socks off the night before I was playing with a big band. It was one of the better big bands in Germany. I think it might have been the VDR, but I'm not sure. Anyway, we played a blues I talked to you at halftime, and I think that's the very first time we actually talked in person, because you kind of wandered back during the break. There were different ensembles. There was a classical beginning of the concert and then the big band. And we got to talking, and you had kind of reached in your mouthpiece, and I could see that you had in your pocket, and I could see you had a mouthpiece with you. So remember, at the very end, there was a blues chart, and I asked you to come up, and I didn't know what this was going to be like. I had heard you the night before, and I thought, oh my God, I could be in trouble here. And but you didn't have a trumpet with you. So you played my trumpet, and you came up, and I think you were into it. You know, it was fun to do. And I played flugelhorn, and we played the blues on this chart. And then we did a cadenza at the end, and that was the very first time we had played on stage together, I think. And this sounds a little bit strange, but in the excitement of the crowd was going crazy, and it was kind of an unusual sort of venue with. It was sort of dinner theater-ish. It was an old slaughterhouse is what it was, but it was set up to be a club, right? It was like a big jazz club. Anyway, we were improvising at the end, and I had a flugel. I felt pretty good, so I went up to a high G, you know, the 4-ledge line high G, and you looked at me and you picked up my trumpet with your mouthpiece and played an octave above me. So we had this parallel octave.
Oh my goodness!
Yeah. And the crowd went bananas. You know, it was really fun.
You know, on the flute, I cannot play any high note at all.
It's not the right thing, you know. It's not the right thing for that horn, but in the context of that moment, it was just play whatever.
Let me show you my flute mouthpiece.
Oh my gosh, I can put my whole arm in that. Yeah.
And it's impossible for me to play anything about the staff.
Well, flugelhorns are about the sound, of course. Yeah.
Yeah, but Alan, the first thing I would love you let us know how you have been dealing with this lockdown for some months. How you have what you have been doing to really use this time in the best way possible?
Well, yeah, sure. We have been very careful because we want to stay healthy and keep our people healthy. As far as trumpet and music goes, I'm practicing every day. Sometimes it's a little difficult to motivate because you don't have any gigs. On March 11th, I was going to a dress rehearsal and I got a phone call, finished.
This is
And
it.
haven't.
This is it.
That was it. That was it. Done.
My goodness.
So of course I've done some of the videos and YouTube-y things that, and been involved in some of the ensemble things that that players can find for any of us on YouTube, you know, by searching. And I've also been writing quite a bit because I go through periods of time when I get really involved in composing. And this has been a fertile time for that because I'm not traveling and have other schedules. So even though sometimes I think people can relate to the fact that being motivated, getting up and having coffee and looking at a nice day and going like, I want to work really hard today. And you think, well, kind of. But music is very motivating. So I've been writing quite a bit of music of different styles, but my main interest really is on the classical side as far as composing goes. Although I have written a new bigger jazz ensemble piece, and I'm working on a piece for Eastman School of Music's 100th anniversary that's going to have some crossover elements because they wanted, well, they just suggested, because I asked, if I wanted to go in a little bit of a crossover between classical and jazz with some ensemble that I might dream up even.
And you do
like that.
You do because you can. Not many
well,
people.
Yeah, and the school is very diverse.
Do both.
Yeah,
not many people can do both things. No many. It's a few fingers that are going to be enough to count it.
Well, either side is enough for a lifetime, that's for sure. But I've been writing some piano music too, and I'm not a pianist. And I don't ask my wife to. She's not a composer or anything like that because she's a professional pianist, but I will take things into her and say, I'll work it out as logically as I can. And after it's all finished, I'll ask her if there's anything in there that's really, really stupid, quote, like unpedagogically correct for the piano. And if I found that with logic and going through things carefully and moving slowly with your fingers to see if patterns are logical and things like that, that I can do pretty well in terms of playability. And so I actually finished a 30-minute 4-movement piano concerto for symphony orchestra and piano.
Wow.
Well, I don't know if I'll ever get it played or not because you're competing with, to get orchestra pieces played is almost impossible anyway.
Yeah, but a new piece of music is always welcome because, especially the pianists, they has been playing the same pieces over and over and over and over and over. And I'm positive that everybody gonna welcome a new piece is the full concerto form. That's impressive, man. I don't have the guts to do such a thing, and I wrote some pieces a little bit, but
for sure, yeah.
The whole concerto for piano and orchestra. Oh my goodness! But I would like you to talk a little bit about your relationship, that your mutual admiration with one of the greatest ever, Mr. Doug Severinsen. I know that you wrote a lot of pieces of music for him, and he recorded a bunch of your things. And how that thing started, and how you developed that kind of, the pieces you wrote for him. And
right, I spoke to him about a month ago or 3 weeks ago, and he's doing pretty well. He's 93 now. Yeah. Well, for those who don't know, I grew up in Montana, Western Montana, which is really not very populous, in a town called Missoula, but it does have a university. And at that time, this is in the 1966, 5 and 6 and 7, I'm talking about. Doc Severinsen was playing his Tonight Show band with Johnny Carson, which was the late night TV, the most popular show on TV, and they were 5 nights a week, etc. But he loved to play solos with concert bands, orchestras, jazz bands, whatever he could book on weekends, he would do. He would work like crazy because he was 5 days a week on TV, and then he would run across the country. And at that time, in actual fact, it's a long time ago, travel was a little bit less easy. The airline connections and the airplanes and things were slower, not as comfortable. It was a little more complicated. But anyway, I don't want to make this too long, so I'll just say that Doc loved to do these concerts, and he booked the University of Montana, all in my hometown. He was willing to play with 2 high school bands and an 8th grade band, Doc Severinsen, for fun, and he picked really hard music for himself. And he came and he did this, and I met him. And my dad, who owned a music store, was one of the sponsors. So he actually came to our house, and we picked him up at the airport. He must have felt like it was such a small-time thing, like, oh God, these people are going to pick me up at the airport, and I have to go to their house. Ugh, because we love that kindness, but sometimes we just want to focus, be at the hotel, that sort of thing. Anyway, that's where I met him. I was 15. And I played a little bit for him, and we became, I'd say, just friends. And I learned later that he had mentioned me when he went back to the Tonight Show and television to the guys in the band. He was saying, oh, I heard this little guy up in Montana. Then 2 years later, he came back and he gave me a trumpet. He gave me his Getzen Eterna, which I still have.
Wow.
And if you fast forward then to keeping in touch with him, before I went to Eastman School of Music as a 17-year-old, he invited me to his house. He lived in New Jersey and commuted to New York. That's when the show was in New York, but it moved to Los Angeles during its run. And I stayed at his house for a week, drove into the show with him, met, Clark Terry and Snooky Young, and was Snooky in the East Coast? Maybe not. I forget, because some of them moved and some didn't. The great trumpet players like Conti Condoli and Pete Condoli later, and hung out with him just sort of as a wide-eyed kid. And then when I went to Eastman School, I kept in touch with him. And at one point, he asked me, after some years I was writing, and he asked me if I would write a concerto for him. And it was kind of a short time frame. So I had developed a real close relationship with a colleague, Jeff Tyzik, who's a conductor now, but was a great trumpet player, and he's a great orchestrator and composer, unbelievable. Anyway, we're still best friends. I brought Jeff into the project. So we made this 30-minute concerto that was later recorded with Doc and the London Symphony with us producing. And we later produced his first big band recording with the Tonight Show. They had never recorded anything in all the years they were on TV. And they won the Grammy for best big band. I don't know what category, large jazz ensemble or something. Grammy Award that year. And so my relationship with Doc has been ongoing compositionally. We play together sometimes. I've substituted for him a couple times when he was in his late 80s and 90s because he had a little problem with his lip or something. And he would conduct and talk to the audience, and they're all real happy. And then I'd play his parts. Not as like he can, but.
Come on.
I mean, he's got a sound his sound is so big.
It's unbelievable.
I sound like next to him, I sound like a little mouse.
And especially at his age, man. But you know what really impressed me the most within his incredible dedication, his passion for the instrument, and to really keep practicing with such a devotion and a discipline, and the desire to keep playing and practicing and practicing. It's amazing. It's very for his enthusiasm for
it's unparalleled. I know other people who live and breathe the trumpet, but compared to him, he's still in his 90s as a student. He wants to learn more. He still asks questions.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
Amazing.
And he's done a lot for a lot of people too, besides in music.
Oh yeah.
He could be a taskmaster. He could be like hard on the band in terms of
real tough.
Again, louder. Come on, let's do it. Focus, all that stuff. He was good at that. He's a good leader.
Oh, okay. What is your regular? Because we are all very interested about. Do you have any specific routine in your practicing daily basis or you change things, or you experiment with new things, or you keep one kind of things as a is, you know, your
Yeah.
regular routine, and then you go from there.
Yeah,
Let us know what's the thing, what you do, man, what you do.
I think I can explain this rather succinctly, actually. I kind of have a framework that I use, and then there are variations inside the framework. So I do warm up. I warm up 20 minutes. I don't I don't look at a clock to make it 20 minutes, but over the years, it's just become 20 minutes. And it's based on the same type of things that are in the beginning of my method book. It involves some mixed articulations and some smooth tones, and then some Clark type, Vizzutti type technical studies. I like to do one that you showed me. I'll show you what I mean in a second. But that's sort of the 20-minute part. And then I might continue the technical kind of pattern studies. If I don't really feel like thinking about music that much, if I'm being a little lazy, I just want chop time, where I play more of the scales and arpeggios and those kind of things that we have in our books, our favorite books. But generally after that, I like to go into some kind of music. So I'll cycle through different etude books and literature that I like to play. And having written quite a bit, I'll go back to some of my things after having not seen them for a couple of years and play, like my perfect fourth and studies and etudes book. I'll play through the etudes of that or something, or Charlier, or contemporary things. Another thing I love to practice, now the things that are difficult for me in terms of, you know how sometimes when you practice you don't rest enough? Then you say, why am I so stiff? Why is my range coming in? Well, because you haven't taken your mouthpiece down for half an hour. You know, we all do that when we're practicing sometimes. So,
Maurice Andreas always said, rest as much as you play, or rest as much as you practice.
He did say that, yes, and I don't think that's a bad idea. I think you can do a little less rest, but when I flip that the other way, I'm always saying to people who are taking lessons or coaching, said, make sure you take a lot of short rests. And then you can incorporate that into your phrasing and playing too.
To let the blood circulate and refresh your sand and make this.
It's simple physical physiology for sure.
Absolutely.
I was just going to say, I like to play the Bach violin music, the original sonatas and partitas.
Wow.
You'll never get tired of it. It's transpose and play them on C trumpet both. There are sections you cannot play because they're all double stops, but they're beyond genius.
Yeah, are you familiar with the Maggio book?
Yeah.
You use anytime those kind of warm up, those kind of things?
Well, no. The Maggio, the Louis Davidson stuff, and what's the other one I'm thinking? Oh, Caruso. I know those things have done a lot of people a lot of good. Those are smart players. I know that it's messed up a lot of players who overdo and, again, don't take rests and worry about ripping and tearing the high notes low to high. So what I would say is there are elements in there that, yes, I'm using, but not in the context of those exact books personally. One of the reasons is I'm actually not a power player. If I try to keep up with players who, like you actually, who have such dynamic range, or Chuck Finley or Gary Grant, or people you may not have heard, these people are in Los Angeles, I will overblow myself and just get stiff and tired. But within the context of my dynamic range, which I've tried to have fairly expansive, I can last a long time too. I think it's more through balance, balance of support, and how much pressure you're using. You know, how little, I should say.
Our mission is to save our shop and build up, not destroy them, not kill it.
Right, and it's kind of long-term holding the position rather than sprinting. So once in a while, yeah, I'll let something rip, but more often it's I'm going for the kind of beauty and phrase and consistency. It's tricky.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
My answer always when the people ask me about what kind of thing do you practice to develop or to get more consistent or better on high notes.
Yeah.
I don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
I never thought, or I never believed that I should practice something for high notes. That's not my theory, my way of thinking. I believe that the most difficult things for me, especially as a trumpet player, is to learn how to play pretty.
Yeah.
Oh
That's got to
man,
be, you have to be thinking about that all the time, because that's what people
Ac-
don't really care whether you play a high G or high A. They don't really care. They care if they feel something.
absolutely, absolutely. Amen, amen. Also, Maurice Andres always said, because Maurice was an incredible, and
Yeah.
you stay with Doug for a week. I have the same privilege and honor that I stay in Maurice's house for a week as
No
well.
kidding.
Many years ago, yeah, I think it was in the '80s. I was still living in Cuba, and but Maurice always said, never practice, always perform.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Yeah, that's very important. Any piece of music it doesn't matter. It's in the practicing book or whatever. Try to make that as musical as possible.
That is a really, really important point, and that's something you can use every day, your whole life.
Absolutely, absolutely, man.
You know,
In
and yeah,
no, I'm sorry. Go ahead. Go ahead. Go ahead.
sorry. Well, on a parallel to the musical thought like that, if you add this bit of physiology, so you have this overriding intention to make as most beautiful music you can and perform, and then the physiology of playing is, I think, on the trumpet specifically, is to have very smooth, steady support against the resistance of your gear, so that you have a core sound that's really pure, and it has substance. That is what builds up the endurance, the high notes, the clean technique. Is that if you don't have that core sound that's pure and steady, pushing gently against the resistance of your instrument, you know the feeling. You can be sitting on any note, high, middle, low, and it's suddenly easy and you just hold it. That's that balance. People overblow that a lot. They underblow it. The kids underblow it. In other words, they don't put enough energy into the horn, but they're thinking about fast and high and loud already, you know. So those two things, a fundamental sound that's really solid and pure, comfortable instead of just maniac and tough, and and then the musical thought, you can go far with that.
I'm gonna mention a gentleman that I really miss so much because he was an incredible influence in many trumpet players, and I believe he also came from Montana, Mr. Yuan Razy.
He did as a child. He moved as a teenager to California.
Oh my goodness, Yuan. And Yuan, I never forget the first time I came to his house for a lesson. He asked me to play the the lesson number one of page one of Max Schlossberg.
Is that right?
Yes, that. I played the night before in the club. There are two long sets, and my
Oh.
I never gonna forget that. I was so embarrassed, because it sounds horrible. And he said, "What's that?" And then, in a few minutes later, he said, "I'm gonna tell you something. It's a lot of blowers out there, but very few people has a finesse."
Yeah.
Oh my goodness, that made me feel even worse.
But he said it in a supportive way, right? That's the way he was.
Yeah, but I felt like I was included in that bunch of blowers. And then I get back. I was living in Miami that time. I get back to Miami, and then I was, trying on that, trying on that. When I came back from my second lesson with him, and the first thing I said, "Maestro, may I play that same lesson one more time?" I was practicing that for a while. I swear to God. And then I didn't play the night before. I was okay. I feel okay. And then I started doing. And then he said, "It's not necessarily that soft." I said, "Thank you, sir. That's exactly what I want to hear."
You know, people watching this probably wouldn't know him. He was very famous as a studio musician. He played first in the MGM studios when there was an orchestra at each major studio. He followed Rafael Mendez in the first chair of the MGM Orchestra. He plays first trumpet in all those Gene Kelly movies like Singing in the Rain and the
Uh,
Gershwin stuff. After 7 or 8 hours of rehearsal,
the,
because the
the,
union wasn't there then.
the original West Side Story, amongst
Yeah,
others.
okay. And he,
Seven Sisters or Seven Brothers or something, that famous movie as well.
which one?
Seven
Oh,
Sister.
Seven
Or,
Brides and Seven Brothers. Also,
yeah.
Chinatown. Chinatown was his
Oh,
last film
oh
because
my.
he was retiring and he didn't. Two quick anecdotes for this guy. His name is Yuan, which is a little unusual. Uan, Racy, Rasey. If you Google him, he was retired and he was quite well known among all the famous composers. And Jerry Goldsmith wrote the film score for Chinatown, that Jack Nicholson movie that won Academy Awards, and.
Yes.
He asked Yuan to come and play first trumpet, and Yuan said, "No, I don't want to do it. I'm starting to retire. I'm thinking about retiring." "No, okay, well, come and play third trumpet." "Oh, okay." So he came and he opened up the third book when he sat down, because listeners and viewers out there, you do not get to see any of the music in advance almost ever in the film industry. You go there, you open it up, you play. And all of the trumpet solos were written in the third book. So when you watch Chinatown, including the opening credits, and you hear that trumpet, it's Yuan Racy. And about the guy, here's what he was like. When he was with his family, they like to go camping. And you should know that Yuan had polio when he was a child, affected his legs. So he always had to use crutches his whole life from when he was about 11 years old. And he had one leg that was kind of useless for walking physically. And but he took them camping. He repaired things. He built things. He was unstoppable. Anyway, they were driving as a family going camping with his 2 daughters and son and wife, Margaret, and they had a blowout. And one of the little girls got out and she's crying. He said, "What's wrong?" And she says, "We have a flat tire. And this is what Ewan was like. He said, "Well, there are 3 that are still up."
Yeah, that's it. Optimism. Yeah,
Yeah.
that his mentality, man. His philosophy of life
Yeah.
was so uplifting, and he was a real sample for us all. As a man with integrity, with a passion, with desire to overcome all those limitations, because he was for years in a wheelchair.
Yeah.
Going to studios, and even after he were retired, he came to almost every concert in town.
He supported people, young people. He
Oh
would go
my!
to their gigs and clubs.
Unbelievable. By himself, the wheelchair. He put the
Yeah.
wheelchair station wagon and this, but he showed up in almost every concert in town, man, supporting people, and
Wow.
giving you a lot of encourage people.
Yeah, I feel very lucky having known him.
Oh man, I was blessed, man. Even when I did a Trumpet Revolution album, he came to almost every session.
Oh, did he?
He introduced me, by the way, in that section, one of those sections, to the daughter of Betty Grable and Harry James.
Oh.
He invited her there when I did my imitation of Harry James, and she came to the studio. That was very,
Oh, sounds great.
unforgettable
Yeah.
moment, But if you on, and I always, every time I thought about him, and I remember him, I smiled, because he was such a positive, yo,
Yeah.
oh man, his character were always so happy and enthusiast, enthusiasm for
Yeah.
everything around it. It was unbelievable.
His-
And he helped a lot of people. One of his former student was Jack Sheldon as well,
Yeah, he helped a lot of people through some problems that were not in music too. A lot.
Absolutely.
Serious help. Yeah. What my
Big,
second
big heart.
Oh, huge. And his kids are like that too. My second recording session in Los Angeles, because I lived there quite a few years and played a lot of things, was a little orchestra for a TV show with Ewan. He was the only other trumpet. It was my first meeting with him.
Wow.
And we played together a little bit. The parts were fairly easy. And a little solo came up in his book. And he passed it to me, which in television music, often the trumpet players will pass parts around to keep it interesting or whatever. In movies, you don't do it as much because the first trumpet player is getting paid more and that sort of thing. But Yuan passed it to me, and I
said and a half.
Yeah, I said something like, "Oh gosh, they hired you for first. Maybe you should play this." And this is a little bit uncharacteristic of him, but he looked at me and goes, "Play it." Now it turns out it was like an 8-bar solo or a 10-bar solo with nice, beautiful string music underneath, because it was a sad moment in the TV show, and I just phrased it the best I could, which is always fun, and I've always tried to do that. And what he had done was given me a chance to be heard as an individual, where in these sessions you can often be anonymous. You play fine, you go home, they forget who you was even there. You know, you play 10 notes in some movie or something. And Yuan, he liked me and he liked my sound, and he wanted me to be heard. And the contractor came up after and goes, "Hey, nice job, thanks." It's a huge gift, because that contractor started calling me over and over. That was Marion Klein, actually, Manny Klein's wife.
Wow.
Yeah,
Wow.
that's what he was like.
Talking about Manny Klein, and also, are you familiar, of course, with the Tootie's Trumpet, that famous album?
Well, Tutti Camerata was executive producer of my first recording.
No kidding.
Yeah.
Wow, you are such a lucky man.
Yeah, he owns Sunset Sound on Sunset Boulevard.
Man, but that album, that was probably one of the first album I heard many years ago, and it was 6 different trumpet players. You know, Manny Klein, Shorty Shirok,
Conrad
Gozzo, Pete Candoli,
yeah.
Ray Triscari.
Yeah, good. I forgot he was there.
Yeah,
The thing about that recording is it's so musical.
Oh, amazing. But Pete Candoli, I met him several times, especially in Yuan house, you know, and he told me something that I want to share with everybody, because a lot of people thought that Conrad Gozzo played the lead in the album. No, that's wrong. Yuan played the lead in the whole album, because he was the only one who didn't play any solo at all.
Yeah.
The rest of the guy played
each had a solo, yeah.
Yeah, they altered solo. But Yuan played just the lead in the whole album.
Oh, yeah.
Yes, and that, man, I said, oh my goodness. And when he used to play with Billy May, oh my goodness, those recorded, that big band sound amazing, so beautiful. And Yuan used to be the lead as well in those recordings.
Yeah, he talked about Billy May quite a bit. Billy May was a genius too, though, also. Writing. He could write parts before the score.
He used to be a trumpet player.
Oh, right.
Before, yeah, he was a trumpet player as well.
I met him, but just as an acquaintance. I didn't really know him personally.
I met him a couple of times. I actually have photos with him and everything on Yuan house. Yuan used to organize parties in his house and invite 100 people, man. That was so beautiful. I met a lot of people there that I never thought I was going to meet, you know. Pete Candoli amongst them, and Billy Naylor and all those people. And let's talk a little bit about your equipment. What do you use?
Oh, trumpet time.
Trumpet and mouthpieces. Okay. Don't get too deep like Doug about mouthpieces, you know.
Yeah.
Because Doug go way too far in terms
definition of rabbit hole. Down the hole.
Oh my goodness. Doug and mouthpieces. That could be an endless conversation. Well, but what's your regular thing? You use more than one mouthpiece?
Yes, but they're all very closely related. And it goes back to during university, we did some experimentation. It was a lot more difficult then. I was in Rochester, New York, and there was no real great mouthpiece maker there. But anyway, it was more difficult to do experiment and try things. And you mostly relied on what colleagues had in their trumpet cases and trying things and just talking and hanging out with other trumpet players at the school or wherever you were, right? And learning about mouthpieces by experimenting for 5 minutes on some strange mouthpiece, you learn something, right? So I came up with a middle of the road diameter. It's a little bit smaller than a 3C diameter that I felt comfortable with. And the diameter is very important, but it's not the most crucial thing. The sound is the most crucial thing, right? So anyway, through the years, I mostly had very small changes in the mouthpiece that I ended up using toward the end of my university years. But I had to have a classical version for C trumpet, D, E flat, and then B flat was unique to itself. Then usually the little bit larger mouthpiece for the C trumpet works on the B flat also. But the B flat mouthpiece on the commercial, a little bit more commercial side of things doesn't work, doesn't sound good on anything else to me, my stuff. So I have a middle of the road cup. It's made by Peter Pickett Brass. It is custom made and available if you're interested in it. It's very, very similar, almost exactly the same to the Yamaha version that I played for many years. As a Yamaha artist, we developed a mouthpiece. The situation was, though, that the mouthpiece maker, the really good mouthpiece makers are in Tokyo. And I was going there once or twice a year for many years, but it's not the same as... Anyway, I don't make mouthpieces a lot, very slight changes. And if I were to throw out a really general size reference for the people listening, it would be like a Bach 4D or something like that. The Bach doesn't even make this mouthpiece.
I never heard about a 4D.
No, there isn't one. It's kind of halfway between the 3 and the 5 diameter, and the cup is sort of like an E or a D, a shallower one, but it's got more room on the side so that it sounds bigger than. And for some people, that I'm able to do things on the little bit smaller mouthpiece, and a lot of players are, that comes off as quite classical at times and not too edgy. The things that you can do on your mouthpiece, if I tried some of your mouthpieces, I think I would sound like a beginner and have no range at all. So it's amazing how our embouchures are so different and our natural abilities. But anyway, to close the mouthpiece thing for now, I have a B flat trumpet mouthpiece, a flugel, cornet, and the C, D, E flat group of mouthpieces, including piccolo. It works on all of them for me.
Also, and the piccolo, you use the same one, E flat D on the piccolo? The same mouthpiece?
It's actually bigger than my B flat mouthpiece slightly, and it's really weird because I discovered accidentally that the sound of the C trumpet mouthpiece, again, which is slightly bigger than my B flat mouthpiece, got fatter on the piccolo, and the high notes were actually easier. The resistance changed just enough.
Wow.
Easy is in quotes, but easier. And that's kind of a freakish backward thing. So my B flat mouthpiece is slightly smaller than my piccolo mouthpiece. It's a little weird.
Wow.
But that was the evolution of it. It's just gradually having mouthpieces made and experimenting and not asking for big changes, just a little something here or there with different makers over the years. And Pickett has been very good for me. Trumpet-wise, as most of you know, I'm a Yamaha artist since the 80s, like 1980 actually. And I've been part of their evaluation mostly, not really design, but evaluation. And the Vizzutti model that's out now, 2.0 it is only slightly different than 1.0 that came out a few years ago, is one of the best trumpets I've played. There are fabulous trumpets out there, and this is one of them. So I feel very lucky and fortunate to have a model that has a broad range of versatility and doesn't choke in the upper register, has a deep harmonic structure, and it's really nice to have. I'm excited to have something. It doesn't have my name on it, just an initial, but it's the Vizzutti model. You know, like Bobby Shoe's model and Wayne Bergeron's model. They're actually the LA and the whatever Bobby's is called.
That's great, man. Great. That's great.
When I try some of the cottage manufacturers of Europe and around America, there's some great stuff. What I have discovered in the B-flat area, rather than flugelhorn and things like that, is that the trumpets of a lot of these manufacturers have a character to them that's really wonderful, but it's kind of specific. In other words, a lot of these really nice playing horns don't really sound they're real commercial sounding, or they're kind of real beautiful, foggy, dark, jazzy sounding for me. And then you have to remember when you try trumpets that your mouthpiece is a huge factor, of course, of the
That's
sound.
very,
You
that's
know,
very,
you put your mouthpiece on the same horn and I play that same horn with my mouthpiece. The feeling, the sound, everything's different. So
that's true.
yeah, but I've been happy with what I'm playing. Sometimes I play a horn of another manufacturer. So, oh, that's a really beautiful sound. You know, I should use that. But in keeping with the versatility side of things in traveling without a bunch of instruments, because I travel with a B flat and a flugel and a piccolo, and I only travel with the C trumpet when I need it specifically.
Yeah.
So, you know, I don't want to carry 10 trumpets on the road either.
I never tried a C trumpet. I'm gonna tell you a little bit what happened. And you know, for so many years, probably more than 45 years or 50 years,
Yeah.
I was using a 3C, Mount Vernon, by the way, Mount Vernon from the, you know, and but I don't know. A few years ago, I can't remember exactly, but maybe 6, 7, 8 years ago, somebody gave it to me in Mount Vernon as well, 1 1/4
Yeah.
back piece. And I start to using, and I fall in love with that kind of sound because I got a little problem naturally with my sound. Is a kind of, for me, it is a little too bright, too harsh, not too bright. And that thing, the 1 1/4, gave me a little bit of a little more mellow kind of,
Yeah.
of tone, you know, a little
Yeah,
round,
for sure.
a little rounder, a little bigger, and then I fall in love, and now for all those years, I cannot get back to the 3C because I miss that kind of sound, you know, what I
Yeah.
mean? And of course, with the 1 1/4, is quite a job to play high notes and all those kind of things. It's very difficult, but I don't care anymore. I don't
Yeah.
care because I was
Well,
for many years trying to demonstrate things, and you know, and say, hey, I can do this. That's not my position anymore, thanks
yeah.
God. You know,
Yeah.
and now
Yeah.
I play whatever I want in the way that I want. If you like it, good. God bless. If you don't, I'm so sorry, but you know,
Yeah. Well, and people have their own aesthetics and ears. I think one of the most
please,
fascinating, yeah,
please, everyone is impossible.
yeah, no,
Impossible.
impossible. Abraham
Impossible.
Lincoln, yeah.
Not even Coca-Cola could do that.
Well,
Some
what's
people prefer
fascinating to me,
Pepsi.
a fascinating thing to me about what you just said is, and I'm being totally honest here, and there are things about my sound that I don't like at all. That's another thing we can talk about. The gear that you play, I could not play the range of a fifth or for 10 minutes. I couldn't do it. Now, why? Well, we're completely different style embouchures, I guess. And it might be also from where we began. In other words, I think if I had begun on really big equipment, I might have developed in that direction. Literally, I'm not being self-deprecating or anything. It's just, I often talk about a 1 1/4 or any Bach 1 mouthpiece as being terrible. I often do. You probably know that. I always do, actually, at clinics and things, because 99% of people can't really play those. They're too big. They can't get the air moving fast enough.
Yeah.
And yeah, they can have a beautiful sound on a range of a fifth.
But Yuan played on the one. I think it was one.
His old mouthpiece, I don't even know who made it. He played the same mouthpiece his whole career.
Yeah,
And it was
and
big. Yeah, it was deep.
yeah, and also Bud Herself played one playing.
Well, he probably influenced the most players in the wrong direction, just like Maynard Ferguson influenced players in the wrong direction, you know. But they could do what they could do, and you're one of those people. You could do what you can do on the gear that you found and discovered and experimented with and picked. I think most people have to be in the middle somewhere to pull off just really confident, really competent trumpet playing with some endurance and some range and some beauty, you know. There's no denying that every adjustment you make in the depth of the mouthpiece affects the sound a lot. And there is a compromise to be had.
I think it's not a good idea. What talking about what you just said, that people hear some trumpet players, and then they fall in love with that thing, and they believe if if they use the same kind of equipment, they're gonna sound like them.
Yeah.
That doesn't work that way, because physically we are all different,
Yeah.
and the way we project the air and the sound and the
Yeah.
vibration and the configuration of the teeth and the lips and everything is different,
Yeah.
And
How much flesh you put into the mouthpiece is part of it too. The natural, not artificial, not trying to do it, but how it sets up.
yeah, but it doesn't work with if you believe that using somebody else's equipment you're gonna sound like that.
No.
That doesn't work.
The only thing I think
We
though
have,
that
we have to find something that really accommodate our necessities.
it should make your life a little easier, not more difficult.
Absolutely,
And
absolutely.
also your emotional life, you're wanting to make music.
Whatever work for you, work for you. Don't
And
try to.
that one point there, I'm all for people experimenting with something that they learned that another player likes. Check it out. But this point, you be honest with yourself. This is not working for me like it does for him, or has possibilities, you know? And that's the problem I had with the Bud Herseth, because I knew him too, and man, what a player. Oh my goodness.
Oh, no. One of the kind.
But copying his equipment was fine, but people took it to such extreme and then they couldn't play. But they still wouldn't admit they needed to be more moderate. You know, they were putting B flat mouthpiece, B flat lead pipes on their C trumpets and all that stuff back when I was in school in the 80s, trying to be like Herseth. Oh my gosh, what a mess.
Oh goodness. He was, what when we met, I met him in the mid-80s in Paris in one of the Maurice Andre trumpet competition.
Oh,
He was invited there to give a master class and to be as a jury, and also Timofey Dokchiser, one of my
yeah,
biggest hero, man. I
yeah,
love that guy so much.
yeah.
I love him so much, and that was funny because one day we were sitting in the bar, Mr. Herzl from myself, and I
Yeah.
never forget that. He always have his mouthpiece in his pocket,
Oh,
and then he was drinking beer, and then he get his mouthpiece in the hands. He say, "Do you know why I love my mouthpiece so much?" And then he put his mouthpiece beside the tip of the bottle of the beer. He said, "You see, they are very similar." And I say, "You know what? This is my kind of guy. This is my kind."
yeah, yeah.
And you know what? That was so embarrassing for me and so difficult, because that was 4 days of masterclass. I was Timofey Dokchiser, Maurice, Bob Herzog, and then myself. And I said, "Oh my goodness." And I was talking to Bob. I said, "Mr. Herzog, I feel so embarrassed, man, because after Maurice and Doc Cheeser and yourself, what the heck I gonna say? What I gonna do?" I said, "You know what? You know what? Don't worry about telling the story. Just tell the story." Okay,
Yeah,
to tell you the funny story, I went to the stage, and they brought a guy. He's supposed to translate from me from Spanish to French. He was a Spaniard guy. Okay, when we start, I said a couple of things about him, trumpet playing and all things. And then he said, What? And I came close to him and I said, "Excuse me, sir, are you a musician?" He said, "Hell no." just hire me to translate you. But I said,
Oh
"Oh,
no.
no. And then that was so difficult. And then the middle of the thing, a few minutes later, an old gentleman jumped to the stage and he started talking to me in English. He said, "Sir, can you speak English to me?" He said, "Somehow, very limited, but somehow." He said, "Okay, let's do that. Dismiss this guy, talk to me in English, and I'm going to translate then into French." And that was Roger Voisin.
Oh, no kidding.
Oh,
How
yeah.
nice.
At that time, absolutely. I didn't know who he was at
Maybe
all.
that's good at that time.
Yeah, of course, yeah. But later on, Maurice introduced us, formally, and it's okay. But one of the things I was talking about, I said I've been, a big fan of all kind of great trumpet players. Amongst them, one of my heroes in terms of playing and sound and thing was Harry James.
Mhm.
And then I play a little bit of Harry James piece, a little bit imitating him.
Yeah.
In the middle of the thing, Bud Hersel he was in the audience and he stand up. He said, "Yeah, bravo, bravo." That was only him. Nobody else did such a thing. And then everybody started looking like him, like this. I say, what's wrong with this guy? And then later on, he told me, say, "Man, I was so happy that you mentioned Harry James because he's one of our biggest heroes,
Yeah.
And I was very disappointed later on when I watched a video of somebody, I don't want to mention who, but I was doing those those documentaries about jazz and things, and somebody mentioned, yeah, and somebody mentioned Harry James. Yeah, he was a guy who played in the circus with his family or something like this, something like that. So, oh man, come on,
Yeah.
a little respect, man. That guy was one of the kind,
Yeah.
and his sound it make a huge influence in a lot of trumpet players after
Right.
after
I think it's a little difficult for a lot of the young people when they look at old movies or hear clips that because of the different kind of recording and the different type of vibrato and the things that they consider old sounding and things like that, you have to put it a little more into context and have a little more open mind. For instance, maybe the styles of some of the music are not what you're used to listening to. Doc Schitzer with his incredible vibrato, but if you think of him as a vocalist or a violinist or something, then it makes sense, And Harry James also breaking boundaries that have opened doors to lots of trumpet players learning to do what he could do. But if you ever heard him play Horace staccato, there's double tonguing up around high E, these lines, way up high and back down and everything. Well, that's an accomplishment back then that was not normal, but also
absolutely.
he might have been playing for 8 hours. They would rehearse and rehearse and rehearse, then take takes and then do another take. And then, especially the movie side of things where they played live in movies, Mendez and Duke Ellington and all the people that played in those movies and Louis Armstrong, they're live. That is real live.
Man with the Horn was that famous movie, no? I think Kirk Douglas did it, no?
I don't know that he played anything. I don't know who played.
Harry James.
Oh, Harry James did, yeah.
Oh, yeah, he did a track, yeah.
The tech wasn't there to do a lot of cutting and no tuning and no sticking in one note and all that.
And that was what it is. That was
There was some putting sections together. That was about it.
Yeah.
So if you put it in the context of that, like you started the session talking a little bit about Fire Dance that I recorded with Woody Herman. That was the 9th take, the one that was recorded. I didn't like it that much because I was getting tired. That was released. It was the 9th take.
9th take.
Yeah, because it was direct to disc, which means they were cutting from the microphones right onto a master disc. Because it was pre-digital. It was kind of the beginning of digital, where the audiophile type recordings were popular, or they were hoping, and then digital came right after. It sounds ancient. I know it sounds ancient, like prehistoric, but this is just before CDs hit, and so we had to do the whole side of the album once through, without stopping, or else you start again. And so that was however many songs were on that one side of the album. If a problem happened in any song, you start over from the beginning. And the first half of the day was rehearsing for the engineer to get balances because they didn't know the music. And you had to play pretty normally because the volumes would be wrong. So that was really difficult.
But anyway, I still impressed with the quality of the sound of those recordings maybe late 40s and 50s and maybe into the 60s when they put one microphone in front of the whole thing. And
Oh,
man,
yeah.
the balance was great and the sound was so warm and natural and amazing. And I say, how come we cannot do it that and reproduce that kind of purity of a sound with all the technology and all the resources that we have nowadays? That is endless possibility. But it's some magical there. It's some something, I don't know what it is, but they put the RCA, you know, those big square 44 or something in front there for 20-piece orchestra, and you hear everything, and everything with good sound, and man, and as you say, no way to fix anything or what they call punching, punching,
No punching in,
nothing. Whatever it is, it is. This is what it is.
When I was redoing a lot of movies, well, quite a few movies anyway, 150 or something, in Los Angeles in the 80s and mid 80s, some of the engineers who were still around were the old guys who really knew that type of recording, and they would set up a whole forest of microphones, but with the at that now by this time, of course, it's not just one microphone, a couple up high in front.
The stereo
90% of what they used was those two microphones. That's why the orchestras rehearsed a long time too. In our day and now, there's no rehearsal. Run through and record. But the other fact that is the other elements that have come in now in the recording of soundtracks and things is all the additional sounds. They're not comfortable in a lot of ways. They, meaning producers and people involved with the production of the whole project, they're fearful of just an orchestra playing. They want to add electronic percussion and electronic synths underneath to bolster the bass and a lot of huge sounds that are electronic that might be drums. There's so much percussion now. Every time someone moves, it's like or a word comes up, bam. You know, they're afraid to write for a symphony orchestra and just leave it at that. So that's an element too.
It's the new way, you know, to do those kind of things. That's very true. Alan, is there any other thing you would love to mention? That any other project that you are working on it, or what?
Well, I have a couple small things like a new duet book, a jazz duet book, and a classical duet book. I call it Cosmic Etudes because cosmic duets because they're.
It's done already? Done? Or
yeah, it's there on my website, and what I'm just finishing up is I recorded all of them, and I'm going to put a little downloadable package of MP3s of this first trumpet part alone, the second trumpet part alone, and then the two together.
Wow.
So you can play duets with me if you want, but also it's a lot of fun. It's a fun way to practice. Warm up and play duets for half an hour, 40 minutes, and you get a good workout. And
wow, that's beautiful.
Little things like that. Mm-hmm.
Can I offer to play the second with you and any of those things?
We might have to come up with a new piece.
No, man, no. Make it easy for me. Easy and low. Easy and low.
Yeah. We could. How about a low note duet book?
Oh my goodness! You know. Oh, talking about that, I'm going to tell you something. When I was young, the old time, the people that I met in my village and around and in Cuba in general, man, one of the main things everybody talked about was long tone. Long tones. They always make a big emphasis in long tone. But the last 40 years or something, I barely hear anyone talking about long tones. They take it out of the equation, and I think, something there is no, doesn't work for me, because long tone is one of the way to really purify, clean your sound, make your thing more pure, more efficient, more warm and big, not loud, because Yuan also
not loud but beautiful.
Yuan always said it's not a matter of the volume, it's a matter of the size of the tone. Have to be, even when you play very soft, should be big tone.
Right, and people
No,
don't understand what that means, but if you play along like a G in the staff or whatever note and just really listen to it, you'll start to get the idea of what it's like to have a rich sound. The only thing about long tones that I changed my nomenclature after my first method book to smooth tones, because a lot of people, when they see something in print, like a method book, they think it's biblical, like, oh, it's in print, I have to do this exactly. There's a lot of good
you always kind of
material.
experiment and do a variation of that,
Yeah, we have to interpret it. And one of the things
Of
that
course.
came with long tones is not taking your mouthpiece off because of some of these power books and things like that. So that's why I circle back around to long tones, yes, but make them take a rest whenever you want. Take your mouthpiece off.
Yeah.
Let yourself settle and play again.
What
And,
about that? What about that Cat Anderson thing to play the G of the second line for 20 minutes? I never could do that. I
No,
tried a couple of times. That man, after 5 minutes, I couldn't do any longer,
yeah. Well, those things that people want to try that are, I consider them a little not logical. Just be aware of how it makes you feel. Give things an honest chance if you want, but be honest with yourself. If it's not working, you don't have to do it. There are lots of ways to become good and become get a better sound and play better. There are lots of ways. There are lots of roads to that.
That's beautiful, man. Beautiful. Alan, thank you so much, man. It has been a really, really big honor for me, and I
Me
hope
too.
I hope everybody enjoyed, listen to you, listen to your stories, and know about what you have been doing, all your things, all your plans you have. Those books, man, I can't wait to see those duets and try it. And the way you're gonna publish that, we're gonna be able to play one or the other, or play with you, or play
Well, the actual print
both.
music is, the print music's on my website now, vizzutti.com, in PDF form. I didn't actually make a hard copy of these. It's all PDF.
They
And
are already published.
well, the print is up already, but the MP3s, I've just got them all recorded, and I wanted to kind of make sure they're all the correct balance so that you don't go from one to the other and things like that and have different volumes. And
Yeah.
but yes, it will be a group so that you can play with trumpet one, or you can play with trumpet two, or you can just listen or play along with both.
Wow, that's very interesting, man.
They're kind of fun, yeah.
It's fun and entertain ourselves, because at the same time that you're practicing, you're creating piece of music,
Yeah, it's really fun, and you can you have to play in tune with each other and things like that. I used a click track for most of it so that I played as steadily as possible.
That's good.
But there are a couple nuanced places, but nothing difficult to get through. Technically, they're, I would say, advanced, but not crazy. Nothing crazy.
Oh. When you say advanced, that's
Well,
okay.
I don't want to turn people off,
Uh,
a lot of it is just rhythmic interplay, and there's no range involved, not much at all.
Oh my goodness. But anyway, man, I'm here 24/7,
Okay.
available and affordable. If you want me to play the second on one of those recorded with you, I'd be honored.
We should come up. We should come up with something. Yeah.
Why not, man? Why not? Because
Okay.
and also I would like to mention, and I hope the people understand, the general concern or the general opinion of most people are that trumpet players are very competitive. We all, yeah, all those kind of things. No, but I do that better. No, I do that. He's better than I. They're always comparing, and saying, which is no good in the end, because when you honor someone, you honor yourself as well. You understand what I mean? That's my way of thinking, and we must respect each other.
Yeah.
We must support each other instead of be so, because some young people, especially, they became better critics than musicians.
Yeah.
they're expert in criticism, you know. But man, it's better you became an expert in your instrument and leave out the criticism, you know,
Mhm.
because that doesn't help no one, and that doesn't help yourself
No.
either, because you know the people are saying, "Oh man, why you are so hard with somebody else?" You
Yeah, it
know.
doesn't make you feel good. Well,
Yeah,
during COVID, with the plethora of videos on YouTube and things, I am completely blown away with the level of trumpet playing around the world that has popped up, or at least come to my attention. All
that's
kinds of variations of great trumpet playing, and we all have an ability to have a personality on our music, just like our own personalities are unique, and that's what you should think about sharing. It's very easy to get a little bit, I don't know, a little sad sometimes when you see something and you go like, wow, I don't think I'll ever be able to do that. That's really normal. And believe me, the top of the top players feel that way sometimes too. So just be yourself and stick to the fundamentals, and away you go.
but you know what? Some people hear things that impress them very much, and
Yeah.
then you're right. They feel like it. Oh my goodness, I cannot do that. And man, that's not the right mentality. That's not the right reaction to that. I believe that when we see or hear something that really we respect and admire, it should be only an inspiration to us. And I say, man, you know what? You know what I have to do such a thing? Practice a little more
Yeah.
and practice a little better.
Yeah.
Because it's not only practice, it's in the way you practice, in the conscience you put on it, you know,
Yeah.
your concentration, your passion for what you're doing. And also something I want to mention that my highly recommendation is every time you have an opportunity to practice, it take only 1 second. Look up and say, thank, thank. That's it. It's less than a second.
Yeah.
Because that the disposition, I mean the frame of mind you get when you are grateful and happy to be doing what you're about to do, that create a complete different, you know, mentality, a state of mind that really the result of your practicing going to be a lot more positive and productive because you are grateful, you are happy, you are very feeling very enthusiastic doing what
Yeah.
you're doing instead of doing something else that really don't please you so much. And in the end, that's going to give you a good result, you know, that they're going to improve your playing, your performance and your skills, you know. And it's such a privilege to be sitting in front of your book and be practicing instead of working in a mine, breaking stone or
Totally.
driving truck from Montana to Key West.
Totally. And it doesn't have to be a profession. I mean, just to have music in your life is,
Improve
it's
your
very
quality.
powerful. The musical experience is so healthy.
Music heals the soul.
Yeah.
And music has such a huge power that could cure all the problems that go around your mind. You know, that made you feel more in love with life in general. When you're around the music, of course, it's a little different when you take the music as an aficionado and when you take it as a professional, you know, your career, that's going to be a little big different. You have to take
Yeah.
you have to take it a little more seriously, you know, when you are a professional. You want to go, as you say, you want to go to a studio and you know, see a piece of music in front of you that you never see it before, and be efficient and be good and be nail it. Or that you, it's only one thing you could do: be prepared,
Be prepared. That's right.
be ready,
Have
be
your
ready.
fundamentals in order.
No surprise, no surprise, and anything should surprise you because you have been practicing so diligently, you know, to be ready to do such a thing. But you are a pure example of that kind of dedication. And I really feel a lot of respect and admiration for you. And I know I wish you all the best in the world, my friend. And one more time, thank you so much for doing this today.
Thank you
God
for
bless.
having me so much. It was really fun. And all of you out there, go play a beautiful melody for someone.
Oh my goodness. Oh, I didn't warm up. It's early in the morning.
Thank you. I'm wishing on this star right now.
I'm I'm sorry about that vibrato. You know, some people don't like vibrato, but man, when I play a melody that with that kind of things, I must put a little bit of vibrato because otherwise, I don't know. I miss a little bit of expression wise. You know, it's
I
like
think you're I
it's like
think your Latin, I think your Latin heartbeat, if you listen to it with a scope, has a vibrato. Dum, dum, dum.
Okay, Alan. God bless you, brother. Thank you so
Now,
much, man. Thank you,
take
man.
care. Thank you very much. Bye.
Bye, bye, man. Bye.
Bye, everyone.